Welcome back, guys, to another Android development tutorial. Today we'll be talking about Staggered Recyclerview. And for those of you who doesn't know what Staggered Recyclerview, it's pretty much really similar to a grid view in the sense that we can display views in a scrolling list format with several columns, meaning that we can have not just item below an item below an item, we can have item horizontally aligned in different columns in a scrolling list. Now, the unique thing about Staggered Recyclerview compared to a grid view is that the items in the different columns don't have to be horizontally aligned, right? Now, by doing that, we can create really cool looking displaying format, and it's going to give us a lot more customization and really neat things. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is create a basic recycler view in our layout. Alright, which in this case, because we're in the main activity, we're going to put it in our activity main. Alright, so let's just create a recycler view, and I'm going to give it a 0 dp in width and height. Now, it doesn't really matter for this tutorial, but the reason for that is because I'm going to constrain it to every direction of our view group. So for the top, and for the end, and for the bottom. Alright. Now, for me, I'm trying to use constraint layout as much as possible, just because it's the most advanced and best practice way. Right? So I'm going to give it an ID of images recycler and an orientation of vertical. That's it, pretty straightforward. So now let's go back to the main activity and get a reference to it. Recycler view, images recycler, find view by ID, images recycler. Right? I forgot to mention the reason for wanting to do this tutorial, because when I wanted to learn about Staggered Recyclerview, just about Staggered Recyclerview, right? The first thing I did was look in YouTube for Staggered Recyclerview tutorials. Now, I found a bunch of them that I don't want to say that they were bad or anything like that, because they weren't. They were pretty good, but they went so far from the topic that it was a complete waste of time seeing a half an hour tutorial that I could learn in 10 to 15 minutes, just because, you know, we don't have to use Glide to get the images from. I mean, that's what you would want to do probably in a real live application, but for our use case, it's really unnecessary, because we're here only to learn about Staggered Recyclerview. So I want to be really focused and teach you about Staggered Recyclerview, just that, right? So I just wanted to say that. So let's continue. Now, the second thing we need to do is, and the most crucial part, is to set the layout manager. Now, something to know about Recyclerview is that it doesn't care about the way we display the data, right? It doesn't care if it's in a staggered recycler view, a grid view, a grid layout. It doesn't care if it's linear, in a vertical or horizontal way. It doesn't care. We can do whatever we want. And to do whatever we want, we have to set the layout manager. Now, for our use case, we need to pass a new staggered grid layout manager, which takes two integers, right? The first integer is the number of columns that we want to have. Let's just say for our use case, we want to have 2, right? And the orientation is going to be vertical, right? As you can see, it's a constant from the staggered grid layout manager, right? It's an integer and it's a constant for that class. Let's go to that class and see if we look it up. Here you can see vertical is 1 and horizontal is 0, right? So if we would have passed 1, it would have been the same, but obviously it's not good practice, so we're not going to do that. And also, for that number, we should also make it a constant, right? As you can see, public static final int span count is 2, right? Now the second thing we have to do is we have to create the adapter, but we didn't create a class yet, so let's do that right now. let's create a class that's called Staggered Recyclerview Adapter, which extends the Recyclerview adapter class. Now, it takes a generic value of a view holder. Let's create a nested class, and let's call it view holder. Another generic name, but we'll settle for that for this tutorial. Let's implement the method, and as you can see, we still get a warning because we have to extend the Recyclerview view holder class. Also a warning, we have to give it a default constructor that takes a view as a parameter and call the parent constructor with the super method. Now I want to create a class variable which is going to be a list of bitmaps. Let's call it images. And let's create a constructor for the class that takes those list of images. Alright, that's great. So now let's implement the get item count. Now for this method, I always see people doing the same thing by doing images.size. Now that's not bad, but it's not good also, because what if, for instance, we pass here new staggered Recyclerview adapter, right? We call the Recyclerview and we'll pass null, right? Now the list of images is null, so if we call size on a null reference, we get a null pointer exception, and that's not good. Now there's several ways to handle with this, but I'll show you a couple. Now the first thing is to check whether it's null or not. Right? If it's null, let's put 0 instead, and if it doesn't null, let's call the size method. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is just call it images size, but to add the non-null annotation here, right? As you can see, we'll get a warning here, right? Still, it's not gonna be a compilation error, but a warning it's okay. The third thing we can do is we can check if images equal null. We can throw a runtime exception, right? This can't be null, right? As you can see, we also get a warning here. It will always fail according to its method contracts. Alright, so let's just remove this and stick with this approach. All of those are fine. It's your choice to decide what you want to do. So if it's null, it's past 0, otherwise the image is size. Now for here, let's return a new view holder instance. Let's inflate let's return a new view holder instance. Within its constructor, we're gonna inflate a new layout which is gonna be called row item. We haven't created yet, so let's create it right now. Alright, let's create it, and I want the root element, the view group, to be card view. Alright, card view. Let's give it some default attribute, for instance a radius, elevation, a margin, so we can see the elevation and the radius. So now let's create the constraint layout. Alright, so that's going to be actually match parent, and the height is going to be wrap content. Alright, so let's create an image view, which the width and height is going to be wrap content. Let's give it an ID of image container. As you can see, we're giving pretty much a pretty generic IDs. Images recycler, images container. You should never do that in a real project that we're working with other people. It's not good practice. Let's bind to the top, to the end, to the bottom, and to the start. That's it. Alright, awesome. So now that we created our image view in the row item layout, let's get a reference to it. Image container. and let's initialize it from the constructor of the view holder. Alright? So now let's implement the onBind view holder. Now I wanna create a bitmap instance, and from the images get it based on the position. This should be position. Right? Now if the image isn't null, I wanna set it to the image container. Alright? That's pretty much it. So let's try to run our application. Forgive me. I passed here null still, so we wouldn't get anything. So in order to get a list of bitmaps, first of all I need a couple of images. So what I suggest that you do is find online several images, download them, and put them in your drawable directory. I already done that with 2 cute dog images because I like dogs, and why not? So let's create a list of bitmaps. Let's call it images and initialize it to new array. Let's create a for loop 100 to populate the images directory, and let's add the images. Now they're currently in the drawable directory in a drawable format. So in order to add them to a list of bitmaps, we have to change them to a bitmap format using the bitmap directory decode resource. Let's pass in get resource, and then here I want to have every other image to be different, right? So I want this image to be the first item, then that image to be the second item, and so on, and so on, right? So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to ask if I modulo 2 equal to 0, then r drawable dog1. Otherwise, I want the second dog. It should be question mark. And that's it. Let's try to run our application and see what we get. Wait for it. Let's see what we get. Hopefully everything is going to be okay. Seems to be an issue. I don't know why. We said forget to pass the images. I know I'm going to forget something. Alright. Let's try to run it again and see if everything works. Launching activity. Pretty slow, I don't know why. Ta-da! As you can see, we've created a staggered Recyclerview. Now you can take it far more advanced than what I did, right? The images can be even more not aligned. You can see they're pretty close to being horizontally aligned, but still you can see it's a staggered Recyclerview. Pretty cool. As you can see, we can change the span count to 3. Let's see what happens when we do that. Alright. Now obviously you need to do some work about the styling and changing the UI, but the core fundamentals is here. You understood how to create a staggered Recyclerview, so for now it's just playing with it and improving it as much as you like. So that was this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please leave a like and a comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.